Welcome, and thank you to tribal leaders and your representatives for your interest in the National Indian Gaming Commission. I'm Sequoia Simmermeyer. I'm a member of the Coharie Tribe in North Carolina and serve as the chairman of the National Indian Gaming Commission. The commission is a federal regulatory agency headquartered here in Washington, D.C. This video summarizes the National Indian Gaming Commission's operation updates from recent agency activity and the objectives contemplated in the fiscal year 2022 budget proposals the Commission is currently considering. The NIGC is a fee-based agency charged with meeting unique federal regulatory responsibilities for the Indian gaming industry's over 520 operations licensed by approximately 245 tribal governments on Indian land in 29 states. The agency is dedicated to good governance practices when carrying out its planning and assessing or communicating its operations focus. The NIGC also understands the value that a well-regulated Indian gaming industry brings to a tribal community's ability to empower lives and build strong regional economies. As the NIGC shared in its recent release of a national gross revenue report for Indian gaming during fiscal year 2020, the COVID pandemic has had a significant impact on revenues in the industry. While over 95% of all Indian gaming operations remain open today, unique regulatory needs and challenges continue to face Indian gaming and the regulatory community. These challenges have been and continue to be an important consideration in how the NIGC is meeting its regulatory mission and managing unique needs that arise because of the pandemic. To assist tribal leaders with understanding how the NIGC is balancing its responsibilities, it has held periodic reports on its operations. And starting with the fiscal year 2021 NIGC budget, the agency provided an opportunity for tribal feedback on the NIGC's budget objectives. This new effort at outreach by the NIGC has helped to communicate and explain the impacts of how the National Indian Gaming Commission is managing uncertainty largely from the pandemic and addressing emerging needs in an ever-evolving industry. This video continues that effort and will both highlight noteworthy operational activity and overviews aspects of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022, all in an effort to enhance tribes' engagement with the National Indian Gaming Commission on topics related to the agency's operational success. The current budget proposal the Commission is considering will address three areas. First, the budget proposes making personnel investments in new positions in order to address outstanding needs. These include needs for personnel that have been deemed necessary for IT services and cybersecurity based on an independent audit of the National Indian Gaming Commission's technology capacity. The budget also makes investments in personnel that will help create staffing solutions in response to increased demands from the industry and tribes for management agreement reviews, IT vulnerability assessments, and declination letter requests. And the budget would reinstate an NIGC professional development program with stronger oversight requirements in order to maintain subject matter expertise and certification for National Indian Gaming Commission staff, especially in the compliance, legal, cybersecurity, and accounting fields. Second, the budget proposes expenditures that will improve efficiencies in NIGC operations. This aims to ensure that cost savings and improvements in service continue as part of the NIGC's commitment to agency accountability. This includes efforts to consolidate the NIGC's communications team and streamline virtual tools used for trainings and remote compliance efforts such as site visits, document requests, and electronic submission of licensing documents. It also includes centralizing the NIGC fingerprint program's personnel in order to alleviate the administrative processing currently carried out by regional offices and compliance experts in the field. These efforts support the NIGC regulations and internal processes that are currently being considered by the Commission. This also includes current regulatory proposals the Commission is considering that, if promulgated, will create efficiencies in the NIGC background investigation staff who carry out work for suitability determinations. These proposals would refine the scope of the NIGC review to comply with the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act scope. The budget's efforts at efficiency will also be supported by the NIGC plans to develop a recurring NIGC workplace and staffing assessment and recommendation report. Such a report can be the basis for future region summits held by the NIGC's 8 regional directors, which began in the summer of 2021, and any future NIGC office location planning and decision-making. Finally, the proposed budget being considered makes strategic deferrals. These deferrals are an effort to account for the uncertainty associated with the pandemic moving forward. As was the case with the current FY 2021 budget, the NIGC budget being considered for fiscal year 2022 will end the fiscal year with less than half of the transition budget that the agency has consistently identified as a prudent reserve for at least the last 10 years. This benchmark has remained in place even while the operations in the Indian gaming industry and the regulatory demands have grown over recent years. This is in line with what the NIGC has previously reported in past NIGC operation briefings for tribal leaders this year regarding the NIGC's transition budget. I have also reported before that, unlike what has been the case for multiple fiscal years in the past, the National Indian Gaming Commission no longer has a transition carryover that exceeds the recommended budget amount for the agency, given the agency's quarterly fee funding cycle. The current budget being considered has also deferred an important software investment needed to allow the NIGC to have more timely and accurate reconciliation of its budget and expenditures. This is an overdue agency accounting tool that would improve the effective oversight of the agency's financial reporting process. However, the current budget defers that investment until 2023 because of the pandemic's impact on fiscal year 2020 industry revenue, and because the NIGC continues to only receive fee-based funding for all of its operations. The agency looks forward to acquiring and implementing this tool in a future budget year. The proposed fiscal year 2022 budget lessens the hiring restrictions and salary freeze that have been in place for over 17 months because of the pandemic. It should be noted the amount of deferred hires underscores the strain on the National Indian Gaming Commission staff during the last year and the record high attrition rate that the NIGC has experienced. The NIGC has an attrition rate of 10% in fiscal year 2021, where the attrition rate at the NIGC is typically 2 to 3%. As such, it is necessary to establish a year-long schedule to replace currently vacant positions. This fiscal year 2022 schedule will maximize the cost savings from vacancies that have not been backfilled and will account for operational necessity recommended by the NIGC's various programs and offices. This approach reflects the NIGC team's strong commitment to accountability and the agency's effort to ensure that its budget both meets its core regulatory responsibility and provides as much flexibility as possible to tribal governments as the Indian gaming industry recovers from the pandemic. With that, I want to thank my colleagues and the agency leadership for sharing their insights in this recording, and thank tribal leaders for your interest in this topic. The Commission welcomes tribal leaders' views on its operational updates and the objectives it intends to address in the budget that it is currently considering. Your insights will help ensure the Commission is considering all approaches to best meet its mandated responsibilities by maximizing the fee-based resources that continue to be the sole source of the NIGC's funding. Thank you.
Haukota, Chante Washte Nape Chiusapi, Genie Havanamachiapi, Isante Oyate Amatansto. Hello friends, I greet you with a good heart. I'm Jeannie Hovland, a member of the Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe and Vice Chair of the National Indian Gaming Commission. Thank you, Chairman Zimmermeyer, for the opportunity to provide a few words today. The pandemic has and continues to impact communities across the nation and world. As tribal leaders, you have had to make tough decisions that you felt were best for the health and safety of your people. At NIGC, we admire your leadership and thank you for the active roles you have had in leading the nation in the pandemic response to COVID-19. We hope that you know how much we appreciate you and the sacrifices you have had to make during this historic time. During the pandemic, the work at NIGC did not slow down, but rather quite the opposite. As the chairman stated, because of the impact the pandemic had on the tribal gaming operations, the NIGC felt it necessary to take as many cost reduction steps as possible in fiscal year 2021. The Commission is proud of the work of the NIGC team and the extra work they have had to take on since the pandemic. We are grateful to have such a committed team who are passionate about the mission of NIGC and the communities we are so honored to serve. We want to make sure that we retain our dedicated and talented workforce, and so in doing so, we have proposed reinstituting important employee incentives. We also want to make sure we are keeping up with the ever-evolving and fast-paced gaming industry and technology. Part of NIGC's responsibilities is providing quality training and technical assistance, and while we have moved to a remote platform, I'm happy to report that the number of participants has significantly increased. I hope you know that we remain steadfast in our work, and we look forward to receiving your feedback and input on the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne Lee, Chief Financial Officer for the NIGC. First, I'd like to provide a quick overview of our annual budget process to help you understand how the budget is compiled every year. The first chart shows the flow of our budget preparation process from the beginning all the way to the finish line. Starting from the left to right, the annual budget process starts from each functional area preparing their detailed budget based on their operating plan for the coming year. The budget data is then reviewed by the Chief of Staff and General Counsel. Many discussions and revisions will take place during this review period. Then, the budget from each functional area will be passed on to Finance Division for consolidation and analysis. After Finance staff consolidates the budget, it will then be presented to the Commission for review. As part of the Commission's review process, we utilize this budget briefing session to review our proposed fiscal year 22 budget with the tribal leaders to solicit your comments and feedback. As you can see in this chart, the box highlighted in yellow represents where we are today. Today's budget briefing session is an integral part of our budget cycle, and your feedback is instrumental to developing a forward-looking and comprehensive budget for our agency. The second slide is a donut chart which illustrates the components of our budget. The vast majority of our expenditures are fixed or committed in nature, such as payroll-related costs, rent, service agreements with other governmental agencies, and vendor contracts. Only 4% of our budget is variable or is more flexible in nature and can be curtailed to a certain degree through maximizing the operational efficiency, such as travel, consultation, supplies, and employee professional development budget. The pieces which are pulled out from this donut chart represents those variable cost items. As I explained earlier, the biggest piece in this donut is our payroll expenses, which represents 78% of our budget. As the chair mentioned earlier, the agency experienced record high attrition rate in fiscal year 21. As a result, going into fiscal year 22, the Commission is dedicated to recruiting and retaining talented employees, along with identifying professional development opportunities and offering competitive salaries. The pandemic has changed the way we have conducted business. However, the level of activities in our agency has increased. Without our dedicated staff, we will not be able to continue performing all of the vital roles related to COVID-19 in addition to the other regulatory duties. Ensuring that the NIGC is fully staffed and able to function at full capacity will bring additional certainty to the industry and the public at large. With that, we will review our headcount plan in the next slide. This chart shows a comparison of our agency's headcount by functional area. Each group of bars on this chart illustrate the headcount for each of our functional area from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 22. The blue bar represents the actual headcount last year. The orange bar is our actual fiscal year 21 headcount as we stand today. The gray bar represents our original headcount budget for fiscal year 21 for comparison purposes, and the yellow bar is our proposed headcount for fiscal year 22. Our Chief of Staff, Dustin Thomas, will take over from here to go over our agency's actual headcount and the proposed fiscal year 22's headcount plan with you.
Welcome to our Operations and Budget Update video. My name is Dustin Thomas, Chief of Staff for the National Indian Gaming Commission. Before turning it over to our Chief Officers and General Counsel, I will share some brief updates, information from our Division of Public Affairs and staffing needs for the agency's fiscal year 22 budget. Our Public Affairs Division continues to provide timely information through our social media platforms, webpage, and media partners. In our proposed fiscal year 22 budget, we intend to modernize our existing webpage to enhance functionality and access to important information. Also of note, our training program has moved from our Division of Compliance to the Division of Public Affairs to help maximize resources in our outreach. While we look forward to getting back to in-person training events, our training program has been very active this past year in coordinating and hosting virtual events, from national conferences and boot camps to monthly training topics and site-specific training. We've seen a record number of attendees for our events and look forward to building on this success in fiscal year 22 by adding new content, filling vacant positions, and adding additional subject matter expertise. As Chairman Sequoia Simmermeyer and CFO Yvonne Lee mentioned earlier, more than 75% of the proposed fiscal year 22 budget consists of payroll. Over the past 18 plus months, due to the uncertainty of the pandemic and our fee-based status, the NIGC has placed necessary spending restrictions to help control costs and plan for any extended uncertainties. This has included a freeze on hiring, which resulted in some positions being unfilled for an extended period of time. With more certainty now in gross gaming revenue and the agency's funding, we are looking to refill critical positions that have become vacant and also add a handful of new positions to improve efficiency and to fulfill our statutory requirements. As shown on the previous slides, the divisions with the most staffing needs include our Division of Compliance and Technology. Most notably, we are looking to create a Criminal Justice Information Services unit with dedicated subject matter experts to oversee our CJIS compliance program, which would provide technical assistance and the monitoring of user activity and the handling of criminal history record information. With that, I will turn it over to our chief officers and general counsel to provide additional information from their respective areas. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Cunningham, Chief Compliance Officer for the NIGC and a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. As previously mentioned, the agency had a 10% attrition rate in FY21, and the Compliance Division is the largest division in the agency. The division includes 8 region offices, the audit program, a deputy chief, and myself. Currently, we have approximately 50 full-time employees. As the chart demonstrated, we felt the full impact of last year's hiring freeze and record attrition rate. With the FY22 budget, we hope to fill several key vacant positions that are critical to our ability to carry out our statutory duties. Those positions include 1 region director, 5 compliance officers, and 2 administrative specialists. During FY21, the Compliance Division expanded its workload to accommodate increased demands for activities such as virtual outreach, CGIS compliance efforts, EPH&S policy development and monitoring associated with the pandemic, resource development and response to cybersecurity concerns, efforts to assist tribes in implementation of IGRA-compliant sports betting agreements, and the implementation of the Commission's directive to find flexibilities in submission requirements. All of those factors increase the individual workloads throughout the division. As conditions permit, the division plans to return to the field in FY22. Our budget request reflects travel for in-person site visits, internal control assessments, site-specific and regional training events, and investigative activities. To ensure our FY22 budget included local level input, the division held 8 virtual region summits to solicit dialogue among the division, the region offices, and tribes. Your feedback and needs voiced in those engagements are reflected in the FY22 budget.
Hello, my name is Jun Kim. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at the National Indian Gaming Commission. In FY21, the Technology Division executed on approximately $1.5 million in new IT infrastructure investments to modernize agency IT infrastructures and systems. As the Chairman has stated, new investments have been targeted to address IT audit findings and deficiencies discovered in previous assessments. Most notably, investments have been made in the implementation of a new secure file transfer service, cloud migration services to Microsoft Office 365 and Azure Government, and the modernization of the agency's fingerprint system. As we close out FY21, I would like to share some of the significant accomplishments the Division of Technology has completed over the past year through these investments. First, the redesign of the agency's core networking infrastructure was successfully completed. This project enhanced overall network security and access control through appropriate segmentation of the core agency networks, and at the same time replaced aging non-compliant network switches and firewalls. The replacement of these devices has equipped the agency with added security protection and monitoring capabilities through intrusion detection and prevention services, along with the secure VPN technology, allowing the agency to meet various federal information processing standards, as well as FBI CGIS security requirements. Second, the agency established a secure file transfer service to provide a secure and federally compliant method of transferring sensitive information both internally within the agency and externally with travel partners. This service is currently in pilot stages and is set to be released into full production release at the end of this month. Greater efficiencies in business processes have resulted in the early use with our tribal partners and is expected to continue to improve over time. Third, the agency has migrated all email and collaboration services to a new FedRAMP certified Microsoft Office 365 environment to comply with FISMA requirements and has initiated the development of the Azure Government Infrastructure as Services to serve as a migration platform for further advancing the agency's use of cloud-based technologies. The adoption of these cloud-based service offerings will provide the agency with added scalability and resiliency in agency IT operations and services moving forward. Last, a significant portion of the FY21 investment has been made towards the modernization of the agency's fingerprint system. During the past year, the Technology Division completed gathering requirements and worked through the federal acquisition process to obtain services from an industry partner. I am pleased to report that we successfully awarded a contract this past August and have started working on this modernization project, which is expected to run through fiscal year 22. In addition to IT infrastructure investments, the Technology Division will reinitiate and expand the IT Vulnerability Assessment Program offered by the IT Audit Team in FY22. After being on hold for so much of 21 due to pandemic restrictions. The ITVA is a tool that benefits our more rural tribes who normally do not have the financial means to have an ITVA completed. The ITVA provides the tribe with a gauge of their network health at a particular time, along with recommendations for improvement. Lastly, it assists the tribes in evaluating if further testing such as penetration testing is required to better understand their networks. In FY20, the NIGC completed 8 ITVAs, and then the pandemic occurred. February 2020, is the last time the NIGC team completed an ITBA. In 2019, the NIGC had completed a total of 13 ITBAs. The need to expand this service became evident in light of increasing cyber attacks against tribal gaming facilities. Prior to February of 2020, tribes had reported a small number of cyber attacks at their gaming facilities. Since February 2020, NIGC has received reports of 14 cyber attacks through tribal self-reporting, a 1,000% increase since the pandemic began. Also, from February 2020 to date, the NIGC has received 14 requests for ITBAs, with a couple tribes requesting the service twice in the same year. With the rise in cyber attacks and increasing demand for ITBA services, the technology views ITBAs as a critical toolset to assist our customers. The agency's continued investment in this area provides value-added services to tribes in a situation where pandemic has already affected overall gaming revenue. The division's commitment to continue this service during a time where network volatility is at an all-time high is our way to provide technical assistance and services that are beneficial to the tribes, particularly when it helps them protect tribal assets and gaming revenue resulting from a cyber attack. In closing, the ITBA service fits the needs of the tribes by keeping them aware of their network vulnerabilities and providing assistance with security against cyber criminals who are scouring for the next target.
The most important responsibility of the Finance Division is to process the day-to-day accounting transactions and to prepare accurate and timely financial reporting to the Commission. While the DC office is closed during the pandemic and all employees are working remotely, some of our finance staff have been going into the office on a regular basis to process checks which are mailed into our DC office from the tribes and gaming operations. If you're mailing your payments to us, you can be rest assured that finance staff is working diligently to process those payments on a weekly basis with minimal delay. Another key responsibility of Finance Division is to review management agreement and conduct background investigation on the manager or management entity associated with the management agreement. The submission of management agreement have increased since the beginning of fiscal year 21 as the economy is recovering from the pandemic. There are often various and simultaneous management contracts in one or more review stages at any given point. The length of NIGC review is dependent on several factors, and the management contracts are processed and reviewed based on the order received. I'd like to also share with you an important project Finance Division is currently working on with the Treasury, which is to offer the online payment option for paying fingerprint fees via pay.gov. As you all know, NIGC has been using pay.gov for accepting fee payments since 2014, and this electronic payment option has proven to be welcomed by the gaming operations, and it has made the NIGC fee payment collection more effective. It has also provided the tribes and the gaming operations with the convenience and flexibility of making payments online. The pandemic has driven our lives to a more virtual environment, and our agency has quickly responded to this change by starting the planning process to add the option of paying the fingerprint payment via pay.gov as well. We believe this online payment option for both fees and fingerprint payment will benefit both the tribes and NIGC not only in the short term, but also in the long run. Due to the huge influx of online implementation requests submitted to the Treasury from all government agencies as a result of the pandemic, this process may take a bit longer than usual, but finance staff will continue the efforts to complete this project as soon as feasible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Honig, and I'm the National Indian Gaming Commission's General Counsel. I was asked to share with you today some information related to one of the services the agency's Office of General Counsel provides to tribes. We're frequently asked to review drafts of agreements between tribes and third parties to ensure that the agreements are not management contracts that require approval by the National Indian Gaming Commission chairman, and that they don't violate IGRA's sole proprietary interest requirement. The resulting opinion from those reviews issued by the Office of General Counsel is called a declination letter. The NIGC started issuing declination letters early in the 1990s, and then in 1993 issued a bulletin inviting tribes and their vendors or consultants to submit agreements to resolve issues or provide assurances that an agreement is not management before substantial money and resources were expended. When the National Indian Gaming Commission first began issuing declination letters, the majority of agreements submitted were related to development or consulting. Over the years, though, that has changed. Beginning in 2010, for example, the majority of contracts and agreements submitted to the NIGC shifted to loan agreements between a tribe or a tribal gaming operation and a bank or other lending institution. And now, with sports betting becoming an option for more and more tribes to pursue, the majority of the agreements we're seeing lately are related to sportsbook services. That's not to say, though, that lending has slowed down. With the COVID-19 pandemic, more and more tribes were either looking to refinance existing loans or access new financing. And the Office of General Counsel prioritized those submissions during the pandemic in order to ensure that we were doing everything we could to help tribes obtain the resources they need to carry on through a difficult time. Since the beginning of 2020, the NIGC has issued approximately 105 declination letters, with new requests being submitted every day. These letters are provided as a service by the NIGC's Office of General Counsel, and tribes are not required to submit agreements by the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act or by NIGC regulations. These reviews are complex and they take time and resources to complete, but the Office of General Counsel and the National Indian Gaming Commission understands the important role these letters play in multiple facets of tribal gaming. Thank you.